The Mystery of BELICENA VILLCA. Fourth Book. Quest for Uncle Kurt. Chapter 41. I will not speak about the intermediary operations, because this will be my last reference to the intense esoteric enterprises of those years. I will just remind that, in 1945, we were working in the south of Italy, in the region of Apulia, where is located the octagonal castle of the Emperor Frederick II Oehensdorfen, who governed from 1215 to 1244, and from whom BELICENA VILLCA speaks extensively on her letter. Our mission was not related directly with the war, because little was what could be done to revert a situation that was more adverse each day that passed. On those days, Germany retreated in all the fronts. But, in all the fronts, for first time in the history, the same Jewish enemy could be signalized. Capitalists, communists, Zionists, all the allied nations, no matter what ideology, showed the same Hebrew faces, the real profile of the synarchy. And in middle of colossal debacle, while Germany yielded, before forces 1,000 times superior, forces that loomed united under the mask of Jehovah Satan, we didn't work for Germany anymore, to close the doors of the demons enemies of Germany, but for the SS, for the future of the SS. In what consisted our mission in the south of Italy? In something extraordinary. We had to search the stone of Fishkarn. Yes, it is not about a delirium. Conrad Tarstein disposed of specific and ancient information that assured that, in 1221, Fishkarn sent Frederick II to his court in Sicily, a stone coming from Agatha, in which was engraved a threefold covenant to establish the universal empire. The three parts would be Fishkarn, Emperor of Asia; Frederick II, Emperor of Occident; and the loyal gods of Agatha, by the underground forces of the earth. Before his demise, in 1244, Frederick constructed such octagonal castle, and occulted the stone forever. Now, Conrad Tarstein explained us that the castle, in its construction, occulted the key to localize the stone, which would not be very far from the square. Effectively, at 800 meters away, under a smooth slope covered with grass, the Dox Davis trapped a crypt of stone that contained a coffer of the Queen Constance, and the urn stone of Fishkarn, engraved in Vigra and Germanic characters. It was not easy to find it. We had to realize deep diggings, and trigonometric measurements with theodolites. The measures were made a posteriori, trying to discover the key of the construction by strategic opposition, that permitted to protect a valuable object, placing it outside of the walls. There was no time to complete the measures, because from April 5 of 1945, had started the Allied invasion to Italy. We went retreating then, towards the north, but, at each step we realized the magnitude of the disaster. The war was lost for Germany, and it would not delay to end. We decided to separate us. Karl von Grossen and Eskadfil, under protest, would remain hidden in a Franciscan monastery, whose prior was sympathizer of Germany and the Arab cause. Both of them had to change the black uniform of the SS for the dun seraphic cassock. At their care would remain also the Dox Davis. While our comrades remained in the monastery of Naples, the Tibetan Legion undertook a journey to Berlin. We were Bangai, Shrivaria, 50 commandos, and me. After multiple confrontations with the communist partisans that infested the paths, we achieved to arrive to Verona, whence started many paths that overpassed the Alps. We took the ones of Bolzano, which guided us one day later directly to Berchtesgaden. On April 25, the Commandant SS of Berchtesgaden received a telegram from Behmen, in which was ordered to stop the Marshal Göring. When we arrived, there was no one to attend us or give information. Then, we went to the Obersalzberg, but before arriving, the tragic destiny that always followed me, decided to represent its better show. 318 Lancaster bombers arrived first, and started to discharge tons of bombs over the Pacific Alpine village. Paralyzed with pain, affected by the lacerating nostalgia, I think that screaming with impotence, I saw the house of Rudolf Hess, and other contiguous flying into thousand pieces. Such house where, 12 years before, I arrived with my father to visit the Lavatory of the Führer, and request him help to guide my career. There, Dad had entrusted him the Medal of the Ophites. What happened to it? Perhaps, Ilse had it, his and mine. How many memories? Damn English, damn Yankees, damn Russians, damn Jewish synarchy. What necessity was to destroy that village of Obersalzberg? Perhaps, suppress a symbol? But to the symbols it is only possible to break their form, break their appearance, because the content is metaphysical, transcendental, and it could be never reached by a Lancaster bomb. Finally, without being able to contain the tears, I observed the steaming ruins of the Berghof, the general barracks of the Führer, empty in that moment, because, as the Allies knew well, the Führer was in the bunker of Berlin, and rests of the houses of Bemmen, and Göring, and of many dwellers that had nothing in common with the Nazism, and the Third Reich. We returned to Berchtesgaden, and we achieved the next day to transport to Munich. There, I interviewed the General Keller, who informed me of the disastrous situation of Berlin. The Russians had reached the shores of Elbe, and Eisenhower stopped the American army near to Targa, with the confessed purpose that Berlin be razed by the Slavic hordes. That was, the damn Jew justified himself, what had been agreed in Yalta. Berlin was, thus, situated by the Russians, being almost impossible to enter, or leave by land. Well, the Tibetan Legion will enter in Berlin. I affirmed with determination. It would not be necessary for you to run such risk, Brigadefuhrer von Suberman. Orders have just arrived for you, that command you to go to Plauen. The rich Führer Himmler wants to see you there in person. How knew the rich Führer that we would meet in Munich? There was just one answer. The officer SD of Berchtesgaden had informed about our pass. I curse it for myself, and I inquired to Keller. There is telephonic line with the rich Führer? Only in case of extreme urgency. Well, it is, my general. It is an emergency. Well, Brigadefuhrer. I come to the radio that I've authorized the call. I sighed relieved. It was necessary to confirm my suspicions before leaving. The Brigadefuhrer Kurt von Suberman speaks, my rich Führer, I saluted, through the inaudible line. Kurt. How glad I am to know about you in this moment. I congratulate you for arriving until Munich. Just in time. I could not be expected less from you. Well, Brigadefuhrer von Suberman, listen to me well. Things have changed here in Germany, and now, I'm in charge of the Operation Friedrich II. Thus, you must come as soon as possible, and bring me the relic of the king. Come by plane. See you soon. Pass me with the General Keller, to give him the necessary instructions. See you soon, my rich Führer. I said goodbye, plunged into blackest of the apprehensions. I reunited with Bangai and Sriviria. Fortunately, there were no available planes in that moment. What would I do? It was evident that Himmler was planning to seize from the Stone of Fishkarm, to use it with some personal purpose. But, the Stone of Agartha didn't belong to him, but to the Black Order SS, to the Telegesellschaft, to Germany. For me, the rich Führer deserved the best of the concepts, a Hyperborean initiate loyal to the Führer, and to our flags. If the fall of Germany had deranged him, that would comprehensible. But, in the Black Order would never forgive me, if I lost an object that Friedrich II Oehmsdorfen protected for more than 700 years. Comrades, I have a problem, I entrusted to the chiefs of the Tibetan Legion. With security, I will be in the necessity to disobey an order of the rich Führer, and I don't want you to be involved. I have thought to transfer you to the local commandant of the SS, and continue the journey to Berlin alone. It is my duty to give the coffer, that we found in Apulia, to the initiates of the Black Order, who are also members of the Gesellschaft, and for this, I must go to Berlin. On the contrary, the rich Führer pretends to receive the relic only him, in the city of Plauen. And how will you go to Berlin, Schwerwald? Well, by land, because, by air is impossible. I will feign to go to Plauen, but, then, I will deviate to the north, and I will try in some way to cross the Russian fence. Then, we will follow you to Berlin. Think it well. We will be useful to realize the prowess that you plan. And on the other hand, what matters the charges of disobedience to us, even if they mean the death? We have lit too much, and the death doesn't terrify us at all. The words of the Gurkha brought me to the reality. Undoubtedly, those days signalized the end of the Third Reich. And very probable, would represent our own end. Yes, all was ending, and perhaps, we too. Now or later, we would have to risk our lives against a crowd of foes. Russian, English, Yankee, French, who, for Wetten, who would take our lives? To leave the Tibetan Legion in Munich, only meant to prolong their lives 1 or 2 days more. That was the reality. I decided in the act. We had to act before the General Keller takes her plane. I reunited everyone in a far garden and I said them. Tibetan Legion. In few minutes, we are going to enter in operations. Our objective is to reach Berlin, and we need to prepare in the act. But, we cannot request that preparations are for shallow. Therefore, we will seize of them. Overall, we must seize from the 2 gun trucks, with extra guns, and enough ammunition. Bangai and 15 men will be in charge of it, trying to not cause casualties in no side, which are the same side of Germany. Capture and get to whom you have to steal, and maintain them hidden in the trucks, because we will release them before leaving. You have 10 minutes to execute the mission, and park in front of the deposit of the quartermaster. Shrivaria and 20 men will assault the deposit, taking only the indispensable for a travel of 600 kilometers, and 50 effectives, grenades, fusiles, ammunitions and victuals. Immobilize everyone and, when the trucks arrive, you charge everything and join us in the edifice of the rooms, next to the casino. You must be there in 15 minutes. I ordered. The 15 Tibetans, and I, would dedicate to pick up our equipments and clothes, and to heap everything in the door of the barrack. The first group had done 4 prisoners. The major grade was a Chartfahrer. I gave him the letter directed to General Keller. On it, I apologized for the outrage, and I informed him that I could not obey the order of the rich Führer Himmler, because this contradicted the previous order that obeyed me to go to Berlin. The author of the first order was a chief of the Secret Service, who was only authorized to mention his key name, Unicornish. I begged to communicate this message textual to the rich Führer, and I bade farewell amiably to the General Keller. I not expected that Keller, forgive me for have ridiculed his men, but I had faith in that Himmler would leave everything as it was, before facing the occult minds of the Third Reich. We released then the disconcerted soldiers in the northern entrance of Munich, reiterating them to transmit as soon as possible that letter to General Keller. My calculations were right, because Himmler didn't do anything after receiving the laconic message. We even crossed with the troops SS, coming from the Russian front to whom none warning had been made in respect to us. Well now, it was April 28th, and I think that it was the last day in which existed a minimum possibility to arrive to Berlin by highway. Our route was as to be marching by the edge of the Senarkit Dragon's Tooth. All were enemy vanguards along the way. First the French vanguards, and Yankee that advanced from the west, and then the Russian vanguards, coming from the east, that collided with the Yankee columns, at the shores of Elbe. Munich would fall in hands of the Frank-Yankee on April 30th, it means, 2 days after we left. Anyhow, and sustaining periodic struggles against Russians and Yankees, we arrived to Potsdam at dusk. Impossible to cross the Russian lines, in 2 German trucks, and with the SS Legion. 2 more hours took us to localize an appropriated Russian campsite to obtain the indispensable camouflage. Some 60 soldiers of the Russian infantry were sleeping in a row of tents, guarded by 4 sentinels. All died by cold steel, most of them beheaded, because no one wanted to spoil the costume. Nevertheless, no legionary wanted to remove the costume of the SS, and they had to use Russian clothing on it many times, helping to make it fit, with generous knife smites. Dressed in that manner, we marched more or less, open towards the Spree. Following its shore, we encountered with the bridge Vandendamme, which was covered by the children of the Hitler's youth of Arthur Axman. 10 minutes costed me to convince an Obersturmführer of 12 years old that we constituted a legion of the SS, and that he must let us pass. Finally, we crossed, and all took the Russian clothes off right there, except for me, because I had to continue much more. Because we had decided to separate each other, this time, definitively. The Tibetan Legion belonged to the Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler. The SS body was the responsible of the personal guard of the Führer, and the most logic would be that such body would go to the bunker to contribute on its defense. Berlin offered a catastrophic aspect. Entire blocks demolished by the air bombers, and the Russian cannonade, the streets covered with debris, flashes of different fires, were added to the twilight of the dawn of that fatidic April 29th of 1945. We marched in silence through many blocks until the Friedrichstrasse, or what remained of it. The idea was to follow such way until the height of the subway train station, and then descend and transit underground. It was not possible to realize that simple plan, because in the street of the Frederick, a terrible tank battle was being waged. Then, we tried to reach the highway of the Wilhelmstrasse when the fortune, so elusive until then, came in our help. In fact, through the transversal street that we took, a column of tanks started to move towards us. SS Oberführer was in command named Otto Meyer, to whom we knew, because von Grossen achieved 3 years ago, that he dictates us a conference of armored cavalry. He was a young officer of legendary courage and great professionalism for the conduction of motorized troops. He had fought in France and Russia, and surviving, apart from causing great casualties to the enemy. When Rudolf, after my first mission, made allusion to that, I would be one of the youngest Oberführer of the German army, included without doubt to Otto Meyer, in his plural concept. Now, he had been convoked for the Battle of Berlin, the last one, and he would die shortly. He stopped his panzer, and went out through the tower. Kurt von Subeman, and the Tibetan Legion. Ha, ha, ha. I would have never expected to find you here, secret agent. Where the hell you think you're going? Otto Meyer. I screamed, moved. I never imagined to see you again neither. Oh, Otto. This is the 10 of the Führer. They must go to the Chancellery. But if they are few blocks? Don't worry, they will. Tell them to march protected by the panzers, and I will leave them in the own door. And you, come to the cabin. I want to speak with someone who is not mad yet, as everyone in this city. 15 minutes later, the 5 panzers stopped in front of the Chancellery, which almost not existed, except for the underground bunkers, and the Tibetan Legion was formed in the garden. The astonishment of the Brigadenführer Mech, SS Commandant of the Chancellery, had no limits at contemplating that troop of Asian faces. The Tibetan Legion, special formation of the 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, is present to take the guard in the Bunkerfahrer. Heil Hitler, my Brigadenführer. I presented and saluted screaming. That reinforcement resulted suspicious to Menck, from which he had none knew, and he thought in a possible desertion of the front, but he got calm when I proved him that our destiny was Italy, from where we logically had to retire, and I communicated him that Himmler was informed about our march to Berlin. Now, if I can, I must complete the mission that the Secret Service entrusted us, I requested. For me, you comply with your duty, Brigadier Führer. Here, there is nothing else to do, affirmed with lugubrious tone. With the 10 inches the morning. I heard when they said to Otto Meyer that, the Führer was resting, that he could receive him. The heroic Meyer had tried to see the Führer, before undertaking a trail from which he, perhaps, would never return. I made him signals to wait for me, and I said goodbye forever to Bangai, Shriviria, and the 50 warrior lepers of the Tibetan Legion. Why describe what was that farewell? It is enough to add that, even 35 years later, I see them clearly in the garden of the Chancellery in ruins, lifting the arm to salute me militarily, and I hear the voice of the Gurkha, saying, "Goodbye Shivachulk. Don't suffer for us, that soon, we will meet in another war, fighting beside the gods." "The Grigor strays?" repeated Meyer, in interrogatory tone. "But that is in the Gifelsnad neighborhood. You must cross the door of Brandenburger, and cross the Zuth garden. Look Kurt, since some days ago, the Russians are trying to occupy the Thrier garden, but they have not achieved to break our anti-tank batteries. Therefore, they have mounted their own batteries too. Conclusion. No one can pass because a hell of crossfire has been formed. But, don't be hopeful. You could not arrive walking neither, because we have mined all the fields and parts of the zoological." I looked at him desolated, and this took him out another of his habitual bursts of laughter. "Calm Kurt, calm, that it is not all lost. Even if the panzers cannot pass, that doesn't mean that nothing can pass. Have you heard about the kamikazes?" he asked, always joking. "Yes, they are the Japanese cis-idols. Well, my dear comrade, if you dare to be a kamikaze motorcyclist, it is possible that we make you cross the Gifelsnad." I began to understand. "The plans is elemental. It just need a kamikaze to carry it out," he said smiling. I assented, making him understand that I would perform the role of suicidal pilot. "Well then there is nothing more to talk about. You take a convoy motorcycle, that now are completely useless, and you penetrate into the avenue, cross the door of Brandenburger, and in turn in the Tegarted. With luck, you will be in the Grigor strays in 10 minutes. But, you must take the Tegarten at full pelt, more than 100 kilometers per hour, to not allow that the Russian can try aiming. Meanwhile, we will entertain them with fire at will. Are you agree?" "Absolutely agree. The plan is suicidal in reality, but, the only that give me a chance," I accepted. "You have done well conserving that Russian suit. It can be useful later, because, where you are going there are no Germans, but Russians. And you speak the language of the subhumans. Don't you?" I assented with a gesture. I didn't want to talk anymore, neither of jokes. I just wanted to start the suicidal adventure. I comprehended that I was risking all or nothing, and I just wanted to begin. Otto Meyer understood it thus, but he didn't stop making jokes. "Goodbye comrade," he said smiling. "The next time we see each other, you will take me to make a ride in sidecar. Ha, ha, ha. And you, in your carousel panzer. Ha, ha, ha." Finally, we both laughed, and bade farewell forever too.